venture studio and blockchain game developer Animoca Brands has grown to be one of the most powerful names in Web3 culture. The market cap of tokens issued by Animoca's portfolio companies totals more than $45 billion, according to CoinGecko data. Joining us now to discuss the state of play is Yat Siu. He's the co-founder of Animoca. Welcome, Yat.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to see you. So, I want to say that you're one of CoinDesk's most influential 2024.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And you told us that 2025 is the year crypto will go mainstream. So what are you going to do to make that happen in terms of getting more mainstream adoption in the space?
Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that we're doing. You know, Animoca Brands today is much more than a gaming company. We actually started with gaming because it was a way of creating mass adoption. We have over 540 portfolio companies, not just in gaming, but in DePIN, in AI, of course, DePIN, other areas of financial services, L1, L2s. But really, the main area that we think adoption will happen by the end of the year will be around gaming, and we can talk about that a little bit later, we think. But the other one is digital identity, so reputation systems like with Mochaverse. We think that's going to build more trust, and trust is definitely what we need a lot more of in Web3. And then, of course, with education, with Open Campus. You know, from some of the companies that we incubated within the education EDU portfolio of Open Campus, there are some companies, for instance, solving student loans, for instance, in education using DeFi. And that's pretty fascinating because think about all the hundreds of millions of students around the world who need that kind of financing. And what crypto is really good at is connecting the need for finance, better finance, to solve certain problems. And I think financial aid and student finance is a good way to do that. So yeah, Open Campus, Mochaverse, gaming, our entire portfolio, digital identity. These are major themes that we hope will bring mass adoption this year.
That's great. So as a student, how would that work? You would put out what you need, what kind of
so you need a reputation score, right? In order for you to basically get a kind of credit score. And then you would be able to basically get financed through crypto. But how do you do that? Well, you need to have a wallet, of course, right? And then, of course, you have to pay back your loan. How? Through crypto. So in a way, it's actually not that different from when you think about how PayPal and Venmo scaled their businesses. They started through students. And that hasn't happened really for crypto yet. And again, what the team at Open Campus is doing and the companies they're incubating that is a perfect solution. Student loans in America alone is a $2.2 trillion space. Can you imagine? Just to think about how many people still have student debt and the kind of interest that they're paying. But with all the yield optimization and the returns that you can have in crypto, you can reduce the cost of the yield for the student, as in lower interest rate, and you can actually make equal or better returns for the one who's providing the loan. So there's a lot of good, interesting, fascinating ways to do it.
What's the timeline for this?
Well, they've already started doing that. And sort of a million students were already financed, really more in Southeast Asia. But really, I think the big area of potential would be the US, I think, which of course it hasn't done. Animoca has been very cautious about entering the US in the past. Surprise, surprise. However, we spend time in New York, and we think the US is the next place for us to focus on as well. And so we're going to do some more efforts there.
That's fascinating. Yes, President Trump has called the US the crypto capital of the world. So what kind
certainly trying.
Yeah, certainly trying to happen. What pathways are you hoping to make in the United States now? I guess you feel more comfortable now?
Of course, and it's not just us, it's all our portfolio companies as well. The other thing that, if you consider what's happening in the US is that there's a lot of capital that starts to unlock. All the venture capitalists that were sort of retreating from crypto are sort of, we should be looking at this space as well. Most of it is flowing into Bitcoin at start, but then they're going to look at the rest of the ecosystem. There's really, if you think about it, US is the capital, basically the venture capitalist center of the world, but they haven't really invested in that area, and now they really want to catch up. So we think that's a potential. Of course, it's first or second largest economy, depends on who you're talking to, I guess, and which statistic you're looking on. It would be sort of ridiculous not to look at that market. Also, very technically savvy. And at the end of the day, you look at the adoption, what you see in places like Kraken and Coinbase, our portfolio companies like Yuga Labs and Igloo, the people behind Pudgy Penguins, they're based in the US as well. So it just makes sense to just double down on that market.
You are a man, a global traveler, a polyglot and whatnot, so you know what's going on in various different regions.
We hope so anyway.
Who's leading?
So right now, I would say Asia Pacific is leading narratively, and a lot of the attention is also really in the Middle East, places like Dubai. But the US never wants to play second fiddle to anyone. So they're going to go ahead and do their very best to be number one again.
So I see that you were appointed to the Hong Kong task force to promote Web3 in 2023. What kind of developments, initiatives have come out of that right now, and where do you see it headed?
I mean, there's a lot, but I would say the most recent one that we just announced a couple of days ago is our stablecoin initiative with Standard Chartered. And when you think about that stablecoin initiative, it's very different because it's an actually sort of HKMA. Basically, think of it as a central bank licensed stablecoin, as a stablecoin, not as a CBDC, together in partnership with a major bank. Again, that's not really been done before, right? Hong Kong is really leading the charge in that area. I think the number of more exchanges have been licensed. Again, it's evolving, it's creating. Remember, Hong Kong didn't have the benefit of the many years that places like Dubai has had. They really sort of had to catch up. But also interesting is they made that commitment right when FTX happened. And they doubled down, they never retreated from the position and continued to grow that space. And so we're very, very bullish on where Hong Kong's going to be in Web3.
And it's interesting because just north of the border in China, they have a ban on crypto mining, crypto transactions. Do you see that softening up?
Hong Kong has always been the financial intermediary for China. So you have to consider it from that perspective, right? You can't actually trade stocks in American stocks in China freely. You can't have free sort of capital flows. That's always been sort of the China perspective. However, Hong Kong has been the gateway for that, and Hong Kong will be the gateway for that for basically digital assets. And just to clarify a few things, the primary reason for sort of banning the mining of things like Bitcoin in China has really more to do with energy than to do with crypto in and of itself, right? And you can own crypto, you just can't trade it. So there's a bit of a difference.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to talk about meme tokens. We had U.S. President Trump issue meme coin. The president of Argentina is getting into real big trouble for sharing a tweet about a meme coin called Libra.
He actually wrote about it, but yes.
Yes, and we had some breaking news on CoinDesk about it. Some tweets from one of the co-founders of Libra, or a market maker of Libra, who basically said he gave money to the president's sister, and there was some influence
that interview was wild. It was pretty crazy. But look, I think to me, it's starting to signal the top of meme coins.
Okay.
Right? When you think of actually what happened with Trump, I think of Trump as a vampire attack on the meme coin community, because it really sucked all that liquidity. And then of course Melania just happened literally, within 24 hours. Which was basically like a double hit. And then now what we have with Libra, you have essentially a sort of quasi-final death knell. And I think we're hitting this kind of sort of close to the end of, not to say that memes go away. They'll always be there. They're always going to be these cultural artifacts. But how we talk about sort of this meme super cycle, I think we're going to hit that end, which to me is a positive thing, because it means that people are going to start looking at the dangers of this, and they're going to understand it's fun, but if you want to sort of actually put real money behind it, then you have real risk. Where do you want to put your money in? Where do you want to actually sort of invest in things? Do it in things that you have conviction. Who's behind it? Last year I spoke about the institutional era of crypto was starting, right? I was commenting about how institutions were really going to be the signals of where you want to put your money in, because they actually do due diligence. They're willing to lock their tokens for many, many years. They're willing to disclose. They're willing to tell you what they're going to do with it, as opposed to all these other guys who are basically just going to dump on you. I mean, there was just literally another case where an influencer went out, launched a token, and then rugged his community basically within less than a day, and thinking it's okay, for instance, right? So that mess has to be cleaned up, and people are going to be fed up of it if they're not already. And we're moving now to the stage where it's about utility, it's about purpose, and what's really, to me, powerful is that, you remember we saw the similar phase with ICOs in 2017.
Yes, absolutely.
2018, right?
It feels very similar.
But remember what happened, right? People were exiting crypto broadly. But here, people aren't exiting crypto. They're exiting into Bitcoin, or they're exiting into other areas, but they're staying inside the crypto community. Maybe they're exiting into stables. Stables are gradually increasing. The volume and the size of stables keeps going up. So to me, that's a bullish signal. So meaning that we're not losing people. We're not gaining people in meme coins. That's the other thing. They're not getting new users. But we have much more confidence broadly in the space. So it's much more mature than it was 5 years ago.
I love it. Okay, we'll end it there. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.